Um, okay, so hey everybody, we're getting started now. So just want to say welcome to tonight's webinar. This is the first one that I'm doing in this. My name's Fred Hodgins up in Ontario, Canada. And the reason you're probably here is you're aware that I've done something that I guess not a lot of people do is I've lost, or I'll say the word released, a significant amount of weight in a short period of time, and I've learned some things in this process that we're going to cover tonight. But we're going to talk a little bit about biohacking, and that by definition is taking control of your own biology. In this case, releasing weight and keeping it off, and using cutting-edge science to be the best version of yourself. And so we're going to be going through some of that. But first, a little disclaimer is I am not giving medical advice. I am not a doctor. I'm a blue-collar guy. Was an electrician, and I just happened over time put on a significant amount of weight that I've since released, and my wife as well. So when I started on this journey, I had a bad case of plantar fasciitis. I was walking around with a cane. I had an ankle injury that was misdiagnosed as well. And so I didn't put on weight because of that. I just wasn't exercising. I wasn't doing the things that, I was walking around with a cane. And I'll be sharing some of the things that my wife and I have learned and applied and done. How I released literally over 70 pounds. 65 of that was in 90 days. How Shirley released about 20 pounds in 45 days. It was about that 45-day mark into this contest that I was in that we learned some extra things from a doctor that we're going to be talking about. Here's some things that I didn't do. I didn't count calories or go on a restrictive diet. I did zero cardio. Number one, I couldn't. And number two is I'm not a runner. And in my study of fitness over the years, I believe in resistance training, but not the way it's been taught in most cases. That's maybe a different seminar than tonight. But I never believe in CrossFit or high impact. And you may, and that's fine. I'm not here to debate that. It's my opinion. But as we get older, a lot of these things are dangerous exercises, and you just don't want to get hurt. So we're going to talk about things that people can do, everyday people can do, and it'll absolutely work for you and anyone that wants to get off the yo-yo diet cycle. I was highly motivated with my injuries and the contests that I had entered. And so I'll be referencing some doctors, give references and links. At the end, share a couple products that we've been utilizing that have enhanced the results with cellular activation, and share an exercise program that I believe is the absolute best for maintaining muscle mass and reducing risk of injury. So again, I'm not giving medical advice. And there's an old saying that documentation beats conversation. So let's have a little documentation here. There's a few pictures of me and Shirley coming up, and that was back in 2016 with my little granddaughter. Looks like she's about 2 there. She's now 5, but I was 260 pounds. Last year we went to, I think it was Custerman's, a little berry farm place, and they've got a playground for the kids, and so there's a little hill there. And I had 4 of my grandchildren with me, with my daughters and their husbands and stuff. We went there, and that's me sliding down this slide. And I got 4 grandchildren, so I did all 4. And I was huffing and puffing like a bull going up that little hill. And just even to get into that slide, it was difficult, as you can see here. A little bit after that, we went on a Panama cruise, and I was up around 270. The heaviest I've ever been is 274. I'm 6'1". Then this contest came along, and I said, I'm going to throw my hat in this contest. And so there's the set of scales showing that was I released 60. I think that's 66 pounds there, 64 pounds. So before and after picture. Right there this is at the contest receiving that award there. And one of the things that I should have done correctly to start with is got the right set of scales, and I had the wrong scales to start with. I didn't read the fine print, but this set of scales is amazing. What it does, measures your visceral fat, the subcutaneous fat, the body mass index. I don't know how exactly it works, but because I started with the wrong set of scales, I didn't have the right starting point for this contest. Again, here's before and after. There's with the little girl. She's a little bit older there for last year. And I just feel totally different. Shirley and I and the cruise, and this was last month, we're in Eureka Springs. Here's, again, the Panama Canal, just a picture of us in June. We're in northern Michigan at the very most northern part of Lake Michigan. And here's just an after picture of my old clothes and me. And those clothes were actually really tight on me before. And so Shirley was just taking some pictures. And here's, again, with some after pictures. And I want to just show some pictures of Shirley, too, to show the difference there. She's released, a good 20, 25 pounds. And she wasn't even trying. She didn't enter the contest. And I thought she looked great before, but what a difference. And it's totally changed my life. And I now know what to do. I know how never to be heavy again. And so this is what we're gonna talk about tonight. And here's a little cartoon I found, and it's this doctor said, you went on a low-carb diet, lost 90 pounds, lowered your cholesterol, cured your high blood pressure, and now you're walking 5 miles a day. But I'm warning you, a low-carb diet is bad for your health. And the doctor that I'm going to be talking a lot about is Dr. Jason Fung. And before he understood more about nutrition and obesity, he would have agreed with this. That's actually could have been a quote from him. It's not. And I'm not going to be talking about a low-carb diet today. I'm going to talk healthy carbs when we get to that. But Dr. Jason Fung is, he wrote this book, The Obesity Code. A lot about what we're talking about is going to be out of this. He's written 4 other books. You can find him on YouTube. He's a nephrologist, which means he's a kidney specialist. He's the founder of the Intensive Dietary Management Program in Toronto. His program has reversed at least 10,000 type 2 diabetics. He's trained in traditional medicine and started his practice early on. He found that 70% of his patients, because as a nephrologist, he's dealing mostly with diabetics, and 70% of his patients were diabetics. And he just followed the traditional path and prescribed hormones like insulin and other drug names, whatever they are, and found people were gaining weight, and the problems got progressively worse. But he took the party line that it was the patient's fault, right? They lacked discipline. They couldn't control their calories in, their calories out. They didn't exercise enough. He sent them to dietitians and got the same, the problems got worse. People couldn't sustain their diets no matter what they did. Calorie reduced, increased exercise, they still gained weight. And he thought, well, maybe, and he looked at some studies and some peer review studies, and it kind of opened his mind, and he realized that he had only 4 hours of nutrition training, and that was as an undergraduate. So again, he's in Toronto, and he has a clinic, and he's reversed, in his words, reversed 10,000 plus type 2 diabetics with diet and when to eat. And so I came across this book while I was in this contest called The Obesity Code, and listened to it as an audio book. So I had started on the program, and partway in, about a couple weeks, a month in, I got this as an audio book. And so here's what I want to start out with, is saying obesity and weight gain is not your fault. The deck has been stacked against you and I. In my opinion, so it's not your fault, but we do need to take responsibility. And this is the time that I've done that. So Dr. Fung states, all diets work, but no diet works long term. That's something that we need to, which is, I believe that's a truth. And so while it's not your fault, here's some truths that I didn't know, or I didn't only half knew. And a half truth is a problem, right? If we know something only partly, there's an old saying, if you're riding a horse and the horse dies, well, the best thing you can do is dismount and walk, right? So dismount. So sometimes we actually have to dismount and reset. So that's what Shirley and I did. So here's the truth: a calorie is not a calorie. Obesity is not a calorie in, calorie out problem. So those are maybe some core things that we used to believe, or I used to believe. Obesity is not a move more, eat less problem, right? That's counterintuitive almost, but that's what I believed. I believed it was. Obesity is a hormone problem. It's a set point problem. So a little bit of history here to put things in context. In 1977, in the U.S., by a government decree, the American Health Association and tons of other organizations proclaimed, with actually zero science behind it, that dietary fat was guilty of causing heart disease. And there's just no real peer-reviewed science for that. But to fix that, Big Brother, and this is a quote from Dr. Jason Fung, declared that we needed to increase carbohydrate consumption to 60%, reduce fats, and reduce proteins. And we've been told this by many well-meaning professionals. Eat smaller meals. Eat more often. Eat breakfast as soon as you get up. Don't forget to snack and have lunch and snack and dinner, and then eat again before bed. That isn't the way things were when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we had breakfast in the morning. Sure, we had, back then in the 60s and 70s, sure, big food had a big influence at that point. But we were eating breakfast, and it was usually cereals. So you'd eat breakfast, but there was no snacks. You came home from lunch from school, walk home from, and you'd eat your lunch, and then you get home from school and have, say, hey, Mom, can I have a snack? No, it'll spoil your dinner. Right? And then have supper, and there really wasn't bedtime snacks and stuff. Well, that was the norm. Why is that important? We'll be talking about that. So we're now told never get hungry, keep feeding. And I just want to say stop. The results is our hormones, our insulin and cortisol and other things get out of whack, and we become insulin resistant. So let's ask the question, who benefits? Who benefits by us eating all the time? Well, there's an old saying, follow the money. So who benefits? Let's think about this. It's big food. Who is funding most of the studies that support this? You guessed it, for the most part, it's big food. Breakfast was invented by Mr. Kellogg's, right? So here's the cycle. Big government funds big agriculture to produce corn, wheat, soybeans, and so forth. It's easy for big food to answer the call and convert these crops, and we're farmers as well, so convert them into sugars and fructose and put them into breads and packaged foods, and people slowly started gaining weight. And guess what? Big Pharma sweeps in, provides drugs to treat symptoms, but never the underlying problem, and the cycle continues to repeat and increase. So the problem really is a set point problem. And let's use a thermostat in a house, because that's something we're familiar with. If your thermostat in your house is set for 92 degrees, or in Canada here, that'd be 34 degrees Celsius, you could have fans going, you could have the air conditioner going, like portable air conditioners. You could have all kinds of things trying to cool the house. If the furnace is set for 92 degrees, everything you do is not gonna work. Well, that's what's happened over time. Our internal set point has been set up to much higher. That's why, and that's been caused by sugars, not by calories. So Dr. Fung states, with all the focus on fat, we took our eye off the real problem, which is sugar. Everything now is low fat or low cholesterol. Food processors increased and added sugars in almost everything, and you can substitute the names for the different types of sugars. From 76 to around 2000, fat intake decreased 10%, butter by 38%, animal proteins by 13%, eggs by 18%, yet grains and sugars and processed foods increased through the roof. The results? Incidence of heart disease did not decrease, yet the rates of obesity drastically increased. So as my dad always said, follow the money, that'll usually tell us the truth. And so here's just a chart of how obesity is increased in all age brackets. And this is, again, out of Dr. Fung's book, but I found that online as well. But I want to just have one guru that I'm learning from. I have read books like this one here, The Big Fat Surprise. This is a great documentary of the history of what's happening with the food industry. And I'd read that about 5 years ago. But obesity is not caused by an excess of calories, but instead by a body set weight that increases and causes a hormonal imbalance in the body, period. People are fed by the food industry, which pays no attention to health, and are treated by the health industry, which pays virtually no attention to food. Here you've got doctors that are coming out, as Dr. Fung stated, and he had 4 hours of nutrition, and it was all slanted in the wrong direction. So some more truths that I didn't know or only knew half was when we reduce calories, the body adapts within days. So example, if you're consuming 3,000 calories and reduce it to say 2,000 calories, in theory, if the metabolic or basal metabolic rate stayed consistent, and it's not, but every 3.5 days we'd lose about 1 pound. But in reality, think of your body as a factory, and the raw materials for the factory just decline. The food declines. So the supervisor, or our brain, says to the workers, which would be our cells, we have a major problem. We don't have enough fuel. So let's reduce the output. Let's cut some muscle that we're not using. Let's cut some ligaments that support the muscle. Let's reduce anything that's not necessary. Let's throw it overboard. But let's make sure we hang on to our fat stores, because our fat stores are what we need in case we have no food. So, which has happened out throughout human history. So our body set point is set high. We hang on to the food that we need for fuel in case we run out of food. This has happened throughout human history. So another half-truth, or I thought when you fast or you went without food, you lost muscle mass. I thought that was true. It's absolutely not true, as I learned from Dr. Jason Fung. I thought we'd lost some organ tissue. Like the last thing you want to do is lose heart tissue, as an example, but it doesn't happen. And brain function, right? If we go without food or fast, that our brain function goes down. It's absolutely not true. Think of it over the course of human history. We've had periods of time where we've had no food, right? And so if we were designed or evolved, I believe we were designed, but if we designed or evolved, whatever whatever you believe in that area, whatever your worldview is, we wouldn't have survived as humans, because most of human history has had food shortages. So what actually happens is our brain gets more, actually I think I have that coming up. So we don't lose these areas, but we do hang onto our fat stores. So when we fast, our body increases our brain function through ketosis. We actually we get more alert when we go without food. It's counterintuitive. We maintain or increase our muscle mass. So when we fast, I had no idea of these things. Growth hormones actually increase. We go into something called autophagy, which I'll explain in a minute. Oxidative stress decreases when we fast, and that's huge. We're going to talk about oxidative stress. Our NRF2 protein, which is the master regulator of our cells, that increases when we fast, and that is super important. Our mitochondria increases. That's the power plant of the cell. The mitochondria is like a battery in a cell phone. The mitochondria is the battery in our cells. And so obesity, this is a study, and you can see here with this slide with oxidative stress. Well, oxidative stress is causing all of these things on the bottom, which is also causing through obesity. And so I'm not going to name the diseases, because I'm just not gonna. But oxidative stress causes all those things. Autophagy is this. It means, by definition in Latin, self-devouring. So it's the natural mechanism of our cells that removes unnecessary damaged, dysfunctional cells. It removes damaged mitochondria, and it's activated when food is scarce or when we fast. It's super important. This gentleman here, Dr. Oh, how would we say his name? And I'm going to butcher it, so I won't even try it. But he won the Nobel Prize for his lifelong work of discovering what autophagy is. And he's the first scientist to define cell recycling, or autophagy. When food is scarce, this recycling process occurs. His research, and this is the documentation. This is not me saying this, but his research is helping explain a number of diseases, including cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. This recycling system, he says, explains and can prevent the occurrence of many of these diseases. And this was an article in the New York Times. I'm actually just rehashing some of the things that were in the New York Times that he has stated. Fasting puts our body into autophagy. It's our body's natural defense mechanisms when we have food shortages. And so this is PubMed.gov. This is the U.S. National Library of Medicine, and I did a search on oxidative stress because it's linked to obesity, and there's over 212,000 studies linking it to different disease processes. It's actually the aging process. As we breathe in oxygen, as we exercise, as we eat, our oxidative stress over time goes up. And now there's over 212,000 studies. Here's one showing oxidative stress and obesity, which has 6,300 studies. And this is the U.S. National Library of Medicine. And just one last thing, and this is the NRF2 protein that I want to talk about briefly, is the American Diabetes Association has actually linked it to a low level of NRF2 activators. So as we eat, this is what happens. Now to get into the hormones. So as we eat breakfast, when we eat proteins or carbohydrates, our insulin levels go up. It's a natural part of just when we eat. When we don't eat, our insulin levels drop, as you can see in this graph. And so when we eat lunch, the same thing happens. And when we eat dinner, the same thing happens. But you notice when we don't eat, our insulin, our hormone levels drop back to normal. And that's the way it's been throughout human history until recently, until basically to the 70s. And so when we eat more often is what we're taught to do. You can see on this slide that our insulin levels never reset. And so when we have, snacks and snacks and snacks and then eat right before bed, we're only fasting, if you will, while we sleep 6-7 hours at night. And the result is elevated blood sugars and type 2 diabetes and obesity. And it gradually happens over time. And so now that we've dispelled some long-held beliefs that it's calorie in, calorie out, is exercise more, it's your fault. That's why I think that's happened, is so that big food and big pharma can say it's yours and my fault. And so here's some of the things that what we did and what did we eat. And what if your body could operate inside like Jason Bourne, right? At a higher cellular level. What if, this is Jeremy Renner, and I remember watching Bourne Legacy. And the reason I put this slide here is that doctor, she said to him, they were parked under a bridge and she was explaining to him and he was asking her about what was going on and he had to take his meds and so forth. But his mitochondria was 3% more effective than the rest of us. That's why these guys were healing so well. What if we could repair our mitochondria? And so this is what we did. And I hear a little bit of background noise. Just give me a second. And I'm going to mute everybody again. And at the end, we can unmute. So let me just do that. So here's what we did. I think that's all the reason why you guys are actually here is what did you do? I thought it was important to say it's not your fault. And here's some things that no matter what we do, if we reduce calories, we're going to lose muscle mass. That's that whole yo-yo cycle. And that's why Dr. Fung says all diets work temporarily, but no diet works because we can't sustain it. So what we did is we eliminated all packaged food. And what I did, and I put this here because I needed to motivate myself when I got a little bit hungry. Number one, hunger doesn't last, right? So it's like 20 minutes at tops. But when I got hungry, I wanted my habits was eating all the time, especially snacking before bed. I was a big snacker. Ice cream, potato chips, whatever. It was bad. But I had to say, like, kind of F you to big food, because, man, you killed my grandmother. How many people I know with diabetes? You guys, through your resetting our set points, and I had to actually motivate myself by saying, hey, screw you guys. You've caused this. I'm not bowing down to big food anymore. That was my motivation. That's how I was able to sustain this. I focused when to eat through intermittent fasting. Basically, I just skipped breakfast. That's all I did. Was really I skipped breakfast, so I went like 18 hours without eating. And sometimes now I'll just eat once a day. And you think, oh my God, how can we do that? It's like any athlete. It's like any skill. It actually isn't hard. It's second nature to me now. I drank lots of good water. I ate a healthy fat diet, right? A healthy fat and a healthy carbohydrate diet, moderate proteins and healthy carbs. I drank 1 or 2 bullet coffees a day. I love my bullet coffee, and oh my goodness, are they ever good? And Jason Fung allows this even on a fasting protocol, so that's how I started. But it's coffee with virgin coconut oil and some whipping cream or some high fat mixed in a magic bullet. And sometimes I put cinnamon in it. And oh my goodness. If I'm doing a little bit of an extended fast, I still do that twice a day. And I tried to get some good sleep. And to accelerate the results, like a Jason Bourne, right? I activated and repaired the proteins in my cells. Both my wife and I have done this, and we upped our game in this area with a company called LifeVantage. And so here's some of the things that we did. And I know the intermittent fasting program and what Jason Fung teaches here, if we follow that, it will work. We've got friends that have been doing intermittent fasting because of what we've done. And their goal was not to lose 70 pounds in 3 months, right? They're not in a contest. They didn't want to do what I did, but they're releasing 20, 30 pounds over the last 3-4 months. It's very sustainable. And so what this product here does is it activates our master regulator of the cell, which is telling all the other parts of our cells what to do. It's reducing inflammation. And this product is the only supplement clinically proven to reduce oxidative stress, an average of 40% in people in 30 days. This is huge. This is an activator. This is not a supplement. So it's regulating our survival genes. When I first learned about this, I thought, well, why wouldn't I want my survival genes working? Is there any reason I wouldn't want my survival genes working? That of my parents, of my children, of my pets, of course. I wanted that down to slow cellular aging. There's a second product that's activating the mitochondria. So we took this as well. It's enhancing cellular health. It's enhancing the engine in our cell, the battery in the cell. Our brain cells, muscle cells, organ cells have like 4,000 mitochondria per cell. Our expensive cells, if you will, the cell that has the most mitochondria in the human body, normally I ask it if I'm in a seminar where I'm having feedback, but it's the female egg. The female egg has over 100,000 mitochondria per cell. And as a side, a sperm cell has like 2. So I think that's kind of funny. I took a brain food, a drink called Axio. This helped me with hunger. Whenever I was feeling hungry, I'd had a sip of this brain food. And here's what Health Canada says about this brain food called Axio. As you read that slide, it says that, and this is, Axio has an NPN number, and it's, which means a natural product number. It's a source of antioxidants, developing and maintaining bones and teeth. It develops muscles, including the heart. That's pertinent to this webinar. It's helping in energy metabolism and tissue formation. So if we fast, I have 2 of these every day, and so does Shirley. But it helps with tissue formation. Again, this is Health Canada. It helps normal growth and development. We let our grandchildren there, which are small, under 5, drink this product. helps maintain electrolyte balance, helps to maintain and metabolize nutrients, helps form red blood cells, helps in the normal function of the immune system, helps prevent vitamin B6 and B12 deficiency. It helps us be like Jason Bourne on the inside. And that's not on the Health Canada site. I took this product called a fat burn. In Canada, it's called a metabolic enhancer. And this has real science behind it with a patented ingredient called sinatrol. And this is some of the studies that have been done. 262% reduction in hip size comparing to a placebo. 263% reduction in weight size. Reduction of abdominal fat. My visceral fat, the organ around the fat around my organs, was up around 22%. Now it's at 9%. Shirley's is at 3%. I don't even know how that's possible. So it's down around 3%. And then I took a ProBio. This ProBio is unique in that it gets through the stomach acids into the body, into the intestines where we need it to get our gut flora. It's 15 times more powerful than any other ProBio on the market. And then I took an Omega because of the brain health, right? So, and this is a fantastic product as well. And I took all of these products. So that helped me to accelerate and helped Shirley to accelerate it once we understood intermittent fasting. And for her, I was in the contest, but we only had about 45 days left in it. So she started the intermittent fasting program. That's when we really kicked it into gear. I think if I'd have known this at the beginning of this contest, we would have smoked it even more. So here's a summary. I was highly motivated to change my life. You know, diabetes was probably in my future. Kidney problems and our family that runs high. Other weight-related issues were in my future, being 270 pounds. So we activated our cells through activating these proteins, NRF2 and NRF1. I learned the hormone therapy or hormone theory of obesity from Dr. Jason Fung. I recommend you get this book and or get the audio book or both if you're serious about changing, and it takes some time to change some of these old perceptions. Obesity is not a calorie in, calorie out problem. You know, a calorie of broccoli is not the same as a calorie of sugar, is not the same as, on and on we could go. Obesity is not a move more, eat less problem. I am so grateful for that. So we cut out all packaged foods, sugars, and breads, and that sort of thing, because that literally communicates to our insulin levels and raises them. I focused on when to eat, not what to eat so much. I did cut out stuff. This actually saved us a lot of money, even though we were buying these supplements because of the foods we were eating. I put myself into autophagy at least once a month now, which is super healthy for the cells. And then when I do work out, I do a high-intensity training workout, 20 minutes once a week. So I only work out once a week to maintain muscle mass. So what did I just do here? Is this a duplicate side? So I was highly motivated. So just what I ate, I eliminated packaged food, repeat, focused on when to eat, drank lots of water, ate healthy, high-fat diet, moderate proteins, and healthy carbs. Drank 1 to 2 coffees a day through the Bullet coffee. I still do that. Took Axio every day. Took the Vitality Stack every day. Vitality Stack is the combination of those products, plus that fat burn product. I tried to get 7 hours of sleep tonight. And so thank you for your time and attention. This is the first time I've run through this. I see it took roughly 35 minutes. I'm excited for ourselves, our family. I'm excited that I'll be able to be with my grandchildren. I can do things with my grandchildren. I'm working around my farm a lot now. I just bought a tractor, right? I'm going to be able to cut wood so much easier. You know, when you're obese, bending over to tie your shoes is a problem. It was for me. when I'd take off my socks would have an indent around my calves. Now none of that happens. It's totally changed my life. And I know that this can for you. And this intermittent fasting, I just recommend Jason Fung. Go to YouTube and search him. He's got so much documentation. Get back to the person that cared enough about you to share this information with you so you can enjoy your journey, the rest of your life. And even if you are thin and in great shape, biohacking through NRF1, NRF2 activation is super important as well. So I'm open for personal coaching by appointment. You can connect with me on Facebook or Facebook Messenger or by phone. And so just to repeat, biohacking is using cutting-edge science, including intermittent fasting. That is now cutting-edge science to become the best, absolute best version of yourself. So with that, I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording. And if maybe what we can do is